Hi folks, welcome to my Bit Retro Journal. I am continuing to try to debug my ZX Spectrum, and as you can see, I haven't made any really progress on it. However, the one thing that one thing I did is I actually found a power supply that was 9 volts. It's actually a regulated power supply. So if I demonstrate this, negative being, you can see that this literally is 9 volts straight. And for issue 2 boards, it's been recommended that you use a regulated power supply. The other mistake I made was that as I was testing some of the voltages, I made a mistake in thinking that this down here was a rail. It was a ground rail. It wasn't. So the ground, I can actually use this. And if I test this side, I get 4.85-ish. And then the input voltage drops a little bit to 8.78. One thing to check was the voltages on the chips to see if they were actually getting it, because it could be, so again, just speaking to some folks about what to look for. These transistors, if they're not working properly, you could not get the voltages, but again, I've been checking the various voltages, and I believe that you should get, oops, here it goes. Yeah, 12 volts, and then 5 volts, and then you should get negative 5 volts. You get all those voltages. That 469 is within the. In fact, they said 4 volts, negative 4 volts would be even good enough. So this is all within the specification. And I tried all the chips, and they all seem to give me that voltage. I also desoldered both of these resistors. Capacitors, because it was said that if they are bad, so I just desoldered the end legs. And if you can do a resistance test to see if the capacitor will go to infinity, and they both do, so they both seem fine. If you do the resistance test, I think if you do it this way, what you get is you don't quite get the right values. Now it's going to infinity. Oh, because it has power to it. Sorry. If you go now, I was actually doing it. Before it was just kind of hovering around yeah, it was doing a 945. It was sort of sitting at the, or was it 800? It was sort of stabilizing itself, but once you unsolder it, you got it to go to infinity. So I think they're good as well. So here's what my next plan is. I'm thinking I have bad RAM. So I have this, you can see, I actually have 2 of these. If you can see, that one is my good 16K RAM, and I bought another one because I was hoping to get a single board one to cut the interference on the Timex 61000, but it turns out the one I got was exactly the same one, which is a dual board one. And the problem is this one's actually broken. And so these chips are also, ITT is a company, they're 4116s. They have the only different markings besides the year dates are that these are 4NS versus 4DS versus 2N, which seem to be speed ratings. But talking to someone that's fixed a lot of these, they said that these chips ought to work as replacement for these. So what I want to do is I want to desolder these chips from here. Now the problem is I don't actually have a desolder gun. So the plan is to carefully heat up the legs on this end. So I'm going to go in the basement and hook this to a vise, and there's some places that I can grasp it right here pretty well. and then put the soldering iron on this side of the leg and suck the solder out of this side of the leg, so that I can remove the chips. I think the two places I'm going to have problems with, it has a much thicker set of traces here on one of the edge pins and then on the other one. So if I can get the solder cleared out for all the other pins, I might have to wiggle it and heat it up. But I think I've already tried one of these legs and the solder came out nicely doing that. And basically what I do is I'm going to squeeze my soldering iron on one end and I'm going to have the pump on the other end and heat it up and then go. And so I'm going to get a nice crimp. I think that'll actually work pretty well with this with the stuff that I have now. Now I brought my soldering iron from the office because it has a finer tip, and so I also can get well, yeah, I can get to 470 degrees, so it's a little hotter. So I think that'll be helpful. Although I really like my soldering iron, because even though this gets hotter, the tip here takes forever sometimes to heat up. The other thing so I'm just going to show you that I have this little timer, and this is a countdown timer, and it has a plug on the side. And so I like to use when I solder, because I really have this fear that I will forget and leave the soldering iron. I also have a flux pin, and I also have some solder wicks somewhere. So, but that's my first. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to desolder all of the chips off of this. That's 8. And then I'll try the piggyback test and just replace all 8. Now, what I'm not sure about is whether these chips are actually broken or not. And the piggyback test doesn't necessarily work for all occasions. The other thing I will do then is, so if that doesn't work, I will then desolder all these chips and put sockets on there, and then using the same technique. And then I have my good RAM pack that I know that works. And so I think what I'm going to do on the good RAM pack is I'm going to, I think, which chip? So if you take a quick look at this, there's 8 chips. This chip right here doesn't have anything on this board, so I think I'll take the good chip, this chip out of the good one and socket it, and then that way I can test all of my chips by basically putting it into this RAM pack, well, the other one, which I know is good, and just plug it into the ZX81, and that way I can find a bad RAM pack. So again, I don't have multiple ZX Spectrums, but it seems like the ZX81 RAM pack uses the same memory modules as this, so I'm going to give that a try. That's the idea. So I will go and move forward with the soldering, but I'm not going to tape it because I just don't have the good camera stuff to do that with. And I'll come back with the chips desoldered. All right, so let's do that. All right, success. So I got them all out, and it wasn't too difficult. It kind of worked pretty well. Sucking the solder out from this side as I'm taking the heat on this side. You can see these thick bands are the only places where the solder, for the most part, I think 5 of the 8 it wouldn't come out. So then I just had to, as I'm jimmying them out, I would apply heat on the other side, and they would just come out on 2 sides. It didn't actually bend the pins, but it worked really well, so I'm really happy with that. And then here they are. Put them on the sponge. It's not staticky, and so it kind of protects them. So the notches are up. So I'm just going to put them on here. I'm going to make sure that they get good contact. When I desoldered them, I made sure that if I bent any pins, that I straightened them out right away so that they would make good contact. So it looks like they are making good contact. There we go. There we go. The tabs are up. The tabs are up. The tabs are up. And by the way, one thing I learned a while ago, because I've done this I've piggybacked the chip before, is you don't take them off by flipping them, because then you can bend the chips. For these, it's pretty easy. All you do is you're going to push it forward. So if I push it in this direction, it comes off nice and easily, and it doesn't bend the pins. So that's a little trick I learned. So just push them forward or backwards, and then they'll leave their they'll leave the sockets pretty easily. So that's how I take them off. Just a trick I learned. I forget when I did this at one point. I'm not with memory though. I forget what I used it for. Yeah, maybe it was with memory. But I don't remember what machine it was for. So, but I haven't done very much of this stuff. So I'm going to do a final check on this just to make sure that all the chips are in the right orientation. I'm just going to bring it really close, off camera. Any last minute adjustments? No, they all look good. And let me just demonstrate this to you on camera. You can see that they are all on there, nice and tight, and looking really good. Back in focus. All right, so let's give this a try. And let's power it up. Keep your fingers crossed, and nothing. Same random pattern. They're in. I could check the voltages just to be sure. Make sure that they still get the same voltages if there's any. So ground, and this should be 11. Yep, that should be 486. And then this one up here should be -4. Yep, so that hasn't changed. So no, we're not getting anything here. They're on here. I can try the boot up again. And unfortunately, nope, that did not work. So next step is I'm going to not only take these pins off. As I said, the trick is if I just move them forward, they come off nice and easily. But I'm going to take these chips off, and then I'm going to desolder the ones underneath. I'm going to socket the ones underneath. And then instead of just, I'm going to try these 8 ZX81 TS1000 chips again. I guess I should bring this more in the picture here. And see if that works. And then if that doesn't work, I think at the same time that I desolder these, I'm going to take my good RAM pack, which I've already removed from its usual place. I'm also going to desolder a chip from that. I was going to do that anyway, because once even if this worked and I figured out which chip was bad, I still want to create that tester because it's an easy way to, knowing that my RAM chip works, it's an easy way to test that. So yeah, so I'm going to try to desolder this again from the top, sucking from the bottom, the solder, and I think it should work. I'm going to have to be very delicate that I don't break anything, so I don't know where. Maybe I can clamp it here, because this is pretty strong. Just have to have it firmly sitting. I have a vise with rubber connectors so it can protect the board, and then give that a try. So that's the next step. Socket these and then put these in. If that doesn't work, use my test rig to figure out which of these is bad, and try that. All right, so I'll be back. All right, so you can see that I've got my circuit board mounted on this vise, and it's got these nice rubber grips in there, so it kind of protects the board. I've used the RF modulator, and on the other side of there actually isn't very much. There's a small piece of, I don't know if it's cardboard or plastic, that sort of covers the RCA jack, and so I put a little stick there just to make it flush. And so that's actually pretty, that's pretty solidly on there. And so you can see that I'm going to desolder these 8 chips. I've already done this one. If you look in the front, you can see that. See, the holes are already clear. And if I go to the other side, you can see here that I've already got all these taken up. And so the way I do this is, again, sorry, lights. I take my soldering iron and I put it right. I have a very fine tip on the soldering iron. If I show you, it's a very fine tip, and I put the tip right on each pin on this side, and then I take my solder sucker and I basically press it right over the pin, if I can manage to do that. And then suck it, and it comes out. And this method actually, I think, works better than if you have the board lying, backwards, because here the gravity is helping it a little bit because the solder is trying to flow sort of. Oops, sorry, handheld camera. The solder is trying to flow down on both sides, and so gravity is helping a little bit. Whereas if the board is lying this way, the solder is trying to go down. And so I think this method works pretty well. So again, I just unsoldered that. Let me focus back in on that. So now what I want to do is I just want to see if I can pull the, I have, so now I'm going to try to focus in on that. Oh, it's moving. So I should actually be able to just boom, it's out. Yay. And you can see that the traces are actually pretty good on this side. No lifted traces, I should say. And the traces are actually good on that side. So this technique works pretty well. I'm going to do the remainder, the remaining 7, and then you can see right here I actually have sockets ready to go. And so yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And then when I'm done, I'm going to go back upstairs and show you the resulting board. All right, here we go. So I'm back, and I got these all socketed. Got the original memory chips, which are right here, out, and got these socketed. I also did a continuity check on all of the pins. You can actually see what the connections are underneath, and so I checked every one, and it all is connected properly. I also created my test rig. So this was the original. You can see that it's the chips are out of this one. So this was the broken RAM pack, but this was my other RAM pack. And just to zoom in, you can see that I stuck a socket in here, and this is the original memory. This still has all of its memory in there. I'm being very careful not to bend it too much because I actually broke this ribbon off. I ended up bending it too much, straightening it out completely, and it literally broke off right here. And so it was a major pain to actually get this back in, because you literally had to, cut out a little square of plastic on the ribbon and then clean these up and tin them and get them in there. I managed to do that. I did test it, and it is working. So I think what I'll do next, instead of just plugging in the RAM from the broken RAM pack in here, I mean, I already know that it's not working because this RAM pack didn't work. So I think what I'll do is I'll use my test rig to actually test which of these 16 RAMs are bad, and that way I'll figure out which ones I can plug in here to give it a try. All right, so let me do that. Well, that's a little disappointing. So I tested all the RAM chips, and it turns out that the 8 original ones from the ZX Spectrum were actually good. I found 2 bad ones from the spare RAM pack, and 6 were good. So my test rig works. So that's I'm really happy with having this test rig now. I can test ZX81 and ZX Spectrum memory, and it worked beautifully. The bad ones, nothing came up, a distorted screen, and the good ones, the cake would come up. But it doesn't get me any closer to figuring out what's next. So I do have a spare Timex 1000 that has a socketed Z80 chip, and I'm wondering if I can use the same Z80 chip and desolder this and try to replace it. So that might be the next thing I try. If I remove the ROM, the picture doesn't change, or it gives you this similar error. Again, I've been told it's not the ULA, it's not the RAM. They're getting proper voltages, so it's not these 2 transistors. I don't know these 2 transistors. I don't know what this chip is, so that's something else to investigate. I looked at these capacitors, and I actually looked at all the capacitors, and I even desoldered these, and they all seem to be okay. So I don't know about this transistor, if that's bad or not. But yeah, so maybe it's the chip, the main processor. But anyway, all this work for desoldering. At least I know now how to desolder. I'm not too intimidated by desoldering this CPU if I'm going to do that next. But I'm going to spend a little bit more time online to figure out. So what did I learn from this video? Well, how to use my solder sucker and a soldering iron to desolder this from a motherboard pretty successfully. That is, and as well as that, and this broken one. But still haven't debugged it, so it's a little frustrating. I was hoping that I would get the splash screen. Well, I think it says it's a white screen with Sinclair Research on the bottom and the K cursor. Did not get that, so yeah, unfortunately, unlike other videos, this isn't one of those nicely wrapped up other YouTubers that are really good at this. I'm trying to fix my machine, and I don't really have that many options. I don't have spares. I don't have spare chips. I don't even have the right socket, so I might have to cut these 16-pin sockets, 3 of them up to socket this one, or order one. But I kind of want to do this next. But I'm not going to do it in this video. I'm going to pause this, and there'll be another part to it. Ask some questions online before I go ahead and desolder this, what else it could be. Again, I've been told it's not the ULA, but maybe in the end it'll be the ULA. I don't know. But it's not the memory. The memory tested out solidly. I mean, at least, I didn't run a program on the ZX81 or Timex 1000. It came up with a K cursor, and I think that demonstrates that the memory was good. So, found at least 2 bad memory chips, so that was some progress, and I have a test rig now that I can use, and got to practice my soldering skills. But still, nothing of a solution for my ZX Spectrum was ZX Spectrum. So we'll do one more video on this, I guess, or we'll keep doing them until I fix it. If you have any advice, like I said, I've checked all the voltages; they seem to be fine. If you have any advice, what it could be, I mean, maybe it could be the ROM. I don't know. But, can I plug my Timex 1000 C80 in place of this? I think it should be the same speed and everything. So anyway, I'm going to end here. Thanks for joining me today in my journal. And I'll see you next time.